The locomotive roars to life, 4,500 horsepower humming, engines groaning, and technicians steadying their breaths as the heavy haul beast hurtles toward the Indian Ocean port. It's not heading to Delhi or Mumbai, it's bound for Guinea, carrying iron, or for Africa's biggest mining venture. We're smack in the middle of a revolution unfolding in Bihar, India, where railway history is being made live, and this machine is just the beginning. But where did this idea come from? How did Indian Railways transform itself from shuffling passengers at home to powering African infrastructure? And what does that mean for continents, commodities, and connections? Stick around, because you're about to ride this full journey. Imagine a factory in Bihar, the Marhoro diesel locomotive plant, built in 2018 as a joint venture between Indian Railways and Wabtec. It churns out powerful engines that are now being tailored not just for India's needs, but Africa's biggest mining projects too. In May 2025, Marhora clinched its first export deal, Rs 2,000 crore for 140 high-power Evolution Series ES43 Acme diesel locomotives for Guinea's gigantic Simandu iron ore railway. Imagine that, one factory in Bihar now fueling Africa's resource boom. But the plot thickens. This is a Rs 3,000 crore deal spread over 3 years, delivering 150 locos not just to Guinea, but supporting scalable rail infrastructure under the Make in India banner. It's a story of ambition met with capability, but it's only one chapter. What set the stage for this leap from domestic railcraft to global exports? And what's being built on the receiving end? This isn't India's first rodeo abroad. Since the 1980s, Indian Railways, with arms like Erkan and financing via Exim Bank, have extended soft loans and engineering know-how to rail projects in Africa, West Asia, and beyond, turnkey railway systems in Algeria, Iraq, projects worth hundreds of millions, cemented ties, and Indian expertise overseas. Over 14 years, India committed over $24.2 billion in infrastructure and rail-related soft loans to some 60 countries, including several in Africa, that eased decades of quiet diplomacy through steel rails. But today's locomotive exports mark its most tangible output yet. But what about the impact on the African end of this equation? What railways are rising in the shadows, reshaping trade and transport? You'll see, it's not just heavy haul in Guinea, it's regional corridors and electrification linking capitals and coastlines. Take East Africa, for instance. The Addis Ababa-Djibouti Railway, operational since 2018, transformed Ethiopia's trade-linking landlocked capital Addis to Djibouti's coast. This 759 kilometers electrified route handles coal, freight, passengers carrying millions of tons annually and changing lives along the way. And in Central East Africa, a new electrified standard gauge railway is underway, the Tanzania-Burundi CGR, launched in August 2025. This 367 km line is set to haul over 1 million tons of cargo annually and unlock Burundi's mineral riches, nickel, lithium, cobalt, toward the Indian Ocean. That's not just transport, it's the lifeblood of trade corridors. There's more. The African Union of Railways envisions a pan-African network, west to east, north to south, stretching thousands of kilometers to knit economies together. Talk of hub and spoke lines across the Sahara, East, West, and Southern Africa. This isn't fantasy, it's strategic rail diplomacy for the 21st century. But how does that mesh with global players like India? What logistical muscles are required to support such continental ambitions? That's where capacity, customization, and next-gen manufacturing come in. That Rs 3,000 crore deal to Guinea isn't just about quantity, it's about customization. Each Evolution Series locomotive was tuned to Guinea's conditions: high-temperature endurance, cab amenities like AC, fridges, microwaves, waterless toilets for crew comfort. They even pass emissions and safety standards with regenerative braking and microprocessor controls. These engines use AC propulsion, modular architecture, and distributed wireless controls engineered for the rugged iron ore terrain around Simandu, and the factory itself has broad, standard, and Cape gauge testing tracks ready for different rail norms around the world. India's Indian-style flexibility meets global needs, and that's why markets are opening. But bigger questions lurk. Can export-ready manufacturing scale further? What does this mean for labor, growth, and geopolitics? By 2024-25, Indian Railways produced 1,681 locomotives more than Europe, North America, South America, Africa, and Australia combined. That's not a fluke. That's scale, with infrastructure at home on a mission to electrify 98% of broad-gauge network electrified, energy efficiency solar stations, LED lights, safety tech like Kavak automatic train protection, and freight corridor upgrades. India is building the manufacturing, design, and innovation muscle to export at scale. So what's next? Can this momentum produce locomotives tailored for other African corridors like East African CGRCs or the Lobito corridor linking Congolese copper to Angolan ports? The potential is there if capacity and diplomacy meet demand. Consider the Lobito corridor, a US and EU-backed project linking Dark Congo, Zambia, and Angola's Lobito port. Hundreds of miles of rail and feeder roads through mining zones projected to open economic arteries across Central Africa. This isn't just infrastructure, it's integration. Training, jobs, trade, local crafters, engineers, logistics players all woven into the rail's hum. And with rising investment needs, Africa requires $65.170 billion annually in infrastructure. The stakes are huge. Asia, the US, EU, and India have opportunity to shape railways that rewrite the continent's story. Will Indian Railways be a major actor, exporting equipment and expertise continent-wide? We've seen the first chapter with Guinea. Now the next tracks are being laid. Will India be on board them? We began with a roaring locomotive rolling out of Bihar, bound for Samandu's iron ore rails, and saw how that single engine is part of a much bigger saga. Indian Railways, once just a domestic commuter force, is powering Africa's infrastructure transformation, from decades of soft loan diplomacy to cutting-edge manufacturing, customized engines, electrified corridors, and pan-continental ambitions. It's a story of rails connecting lands, economies, and futures. And as Africa races or chugs towards seamless transport networks, one thing's clear: the tracks still to be laid will define partnerships, prosperity, and power for decades to come. Thank you for riding along. Here ends our journey. Africa's railway boom isn't just about moving iron ore, copper, or coal. It's about transforming entire societies. Picture a farmer in Burundi who once spent days transporting coffee beans on dirt roads, watching half his harvest spoil before reaching a buyer. Now imagine that same farmer loading goods onto a rail network that links his village to ports, cities, and markets thousands of kilometers away. Suddenly, what was once subsistence farming becomes a real business, feeding families, creating jobs, and attracting investment. That's the ripple effect of railways. Every locomotive built in Bihar doesn't just carry freight, it carries opportunity. Factories, warehouses, schools, and even hospitals spring up along new lines. In Ethiopia, for example, towns along the Addis-Djibouti Railway reported faster growth, better wages, and easier access to medicine. What looks like steel and engines on the outside becomes life-changing on the inside. But Africa's transport story isn't without challenges. Laying tracks across deserts, jungles, and mountain ranges is an engineering battle in itself. Then comes financing, billions of dollars in loans, partnerships, and geopolitical deals. This is where India's strategy becomes unique. It isn't just selling machines, it's offering long-term cooperation, training local engineers, and adapting technology for African conditions. The real question is, can India keep up this momentum, especially as global giants like China and the US pour billions into African infrastructure? The answer might determine not only the future of Africa's railways, but also the balance of influence across the continent. And what's most surprising? The next chapter of this story may not be about locomotives at all, but about something even more futuristic that's already being tested: